On today's podcast, I give you the permission slip to go, to skyrocket, to chase it, to go after it, and exactly how to do it, with a reminder of how to stay on track if you get off, and how to have the support of a community behind you. And so, without further ado, let's get into the episode. And welcome back, and happy whatever day of the week it is, and welcome to the wrap of the series. So if you're listening to this in the year 2023, then you are currently on track. If you happen to find this in the future, you can as well go back and listen to the episodes predating this one in this series for the entire month of January 2023, designed to help you and all of you listening right now absolutely skyrocket and crush your wildest dreams and visions in 2023 by understanding the baseline foundational component that's required for your success, which is intentionality. And in the previous episodes leading up to this one, we've talked about environmental design, we talked about marketing laws, we've talked about a lot of amazing foundations and principles that, given the time, with consistent and intentional action, can only produce positive results. And at this point in the game, the only last thing for us to do and you to do is to now start intentionally designing every ounce of your day and every ounce of your space, and then making the commitment and holding yourself accountable and utilizing the power of our community with your commitment to execute against that intentionality, which is going to give you the best chance of success. And even for me this year, 2023, there's a part of me that feels like I'm starting over. Like I'm having feelings in my body and I'm having thoughts like I had in my first ever year of entrepreneurship. And I am really, really excited about it because there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think it's because I've grown another level. I have a different amount of clarity. I have different goals. I have different things that light me up. I have different things that fill my bucket. I have different things that move the needle in my business. And I'm using this time, and I've used this reflection time and even recording this series of podcasts for you listening to apply the same principles to myself, to go back to the basics and go back to the beginning. And in that process, I've identified that I've grown a lot as a person, that I have an increased level of confidence and awareness and capacity and ability able to see things. And I actually find myself craving simplicity in my life and in my business, while still focusing on scaling and scaling my impact and scaling my revenue. And so I have this kind of new view. And so this has been really powerful. And so I see this as all this unknown now and all this ambiguity of something that used to scare me, but now it excites me because I know that now, in order to fill that ambiguity or to clear that haziness and get clarity, the way to do that is to intentionally choose my actions and behaviors that align where I want to go, and it gives me something to focus on, which will start bringing that into clarity. And now I find myself so excited about the opportunity. Like there's this spark in me and this joy in me, and there's a little bit of nervousness, and then there's this like, holy moly, and tighten my seatbelt a little bit, but I love it. And I love the fact that I've been through this cycle, and I know this, that in order for me to keep this feeling and to make it come to a fruition, that I just get to be intentional about every ounce of my time. And that is my invitation for you, because now is a moment that you can transition, that we can transition into becoming a different version of ourselves, a different entrepreneur with different focuses and a different mindset. But what it requires is that we create these intentions and we design our day and our business around them, so that we're using those behaviors of that person, which will allow everything to catch up, that we're being intentional about our thought process, that we're regulating our emotions, that we're not becoming reactive to things in the business, that we're focusing on the core principles that made us money in the first place, that us and our team are abiding by what we believe to be true in the values of how we do business, that we're over delivering on customers, that we're making sure we connect with ourselves and with our team and with the impact that we're having. And we remember to never forget where we came from, and we give ourselves time and space to look back and reflect, and maybe even remind yourself of some of those hardships you faced in life and some of those adversities that you faced in life that in the moment and at that time felt insurmountable. But now in reflection, you realize that you made it through. You realize that you actually made it, and you've accomplished that and many other challenging things in your life, which is just a testament to your resiliency and a testament to your commitment, but also a testament to you recognizing that you have the tools, that you have the ability, that you have the capacity. But it doesn't always mean that we always have the skill set. So you can have the tool and you can have the ability to use it and you can have the strength and capacity to use it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be used efficiently every single time. But it means that the more that we continue to pick it up and practice it, the better we get with it, the better we get with it. And it's no different for our life as a human or our life as an entrepreneur, that as we reach new levels, sometimes those levels look like a decrease in revenue, but an increase in happiness, time, and joy. Or sometimes they look like a decrease in revenue with a lot of stress and fear about why it's dipping. But then when you take the space to reflect, you realize that it's a little bit different than you thought it was. Or maybe it's just everything stayed the same. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that right now, in this moment, no matter what the situation is that in this present moment, we have the ability to choose. We get to choose where we're going. We get to choose how we see it. We get to choose whether we're excited about it, sad about it, upset about it. And then we get to choose to take the action that's going to bring it into fruition. And you've done this before. You've made it through this before. You've made it through challenging things. You've made it through things that felt insurmountable. Your back is bent against the wall. And I'm not saying that because we want that to happen again, but what I want you to remember is how strong you are, how capable you are, how able you are, how resilient you are. Because any challenge, any roadblock, any resistance, anything that doesn't go as planned that shows up in your space, that shows up in your ecosystem and shows up for your life isn't a roadblock. It's an opportunity for growth. It's the ability to learn something new that didn't work or wasn't ideal that can now be improved upon and moved into the next thing that will give it a better chance of working. And all of that is going to boil down to you being intentional about every ounce of your life, every ounce of your day, every ounce of your minute, every ounce of your moment, every ounce of your commute in your office, your gym time, your consumption time, your TV time, your relationship time, where you spend it. And that also includes intentionally putting time in there to have 3 hours where you're not intentional and you just get to be play and free and expressive. But understand that the number one equalizer of every single human being in existence is time. And the more intentional and effective we use it, the better it works for us. And so that's my invitation for you throughout 2023 and beyond. And I want you to use this as a reminder. I want you to save this specific episode. And I want you to come back and listen to it often. If you play it once a week, once every 2 weeks, but I want it to serve as a reminder. Like right now, as you're listening, I want you to think about how every time you hear this podcast, you're reminded of your commitment. Every time you hear this podcast, you're reminded of your intention. Every time you hear this podcast, you know you have strength. You know you have a community. Every time you hear this podcast, you're reminded of your resiliency and your tenacity. And every time you hear this podcast, you're reminded that you have the tools, you have the support, you have the ability, and you get to choose. And you remember to take this action. And whenever needed, you come back to the basics. You come listen to this one. You come listen to the marketing laws. You come listen to any podcast in this series. And you use it as a reminder to plug you back in, to get you back in the zone, and then take an intentional action to continue. And if that means that you're intentional and that intentionality means you take a break from this podcast, great. Let me know how I can support you. If that intentionality means you lean into this podcast more, great. Let me know how I can support you. If that means all you listen to is this podcast, great. Let me know how I can support you. If that means you do an audit of all your podcasts, if that means you take a podcast break, if that means you only pick one YouTube video a day, if that means you only open your Instagram at certain amounts of times, or you unfollow accounts, or you turn on notifications, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're intentional, and that with that intention, the actions, behaviors, habits, and rituals that you are pursuing are in line with that person you want to become. They are in line with that vision that you want to have. They are in line with the goals that you want to accomplish. And if those behaviors are not aligned with those goals, if they are not aligned with the person who would be responsible for those goals, then you have the foresight to adjust them so that they are, so that you can leverage this time and that intention to create the result that you want in the world. And so my word for you is intention. Intention, intention, intention. You have the ability to drive. You have the ability to control the destination. You have the ability to get yourself there safely. You just have to grab the wheel. And when you grab the wheel, you have to look where you're going, and you have to be intentional about every turn, every choice, every decision, so that you can get to where it is that you want to go. And that's what I got for you today. So remember, as always, that relationships will always beat algorithms, especially the one with yourself. You will either see me in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs, but either way, we out.